I'm here with former Republic of Ireland international Gary Breen after another thrilling North London derby.
Yeah.
It finished 4-2 last season, 2-2 today here at the Emirates. Was it a fair scoreline, a fair reflection of what we saw on the pitch?
I think it probably sums up that at one period Tottenham was so dominant, and certainly in that second half Arsenal were dominant, so I think it probably does look like a fair result. There was a period there when Tottenham went 2-0 up that you couldn't see anything other than a Spurs win, and likewise when Arsenal got that goal just before half time and a boost for everyone associated with Arsenal and certainly the crowd who really responded to it. And then they came out second half on the front foot, looked so dangerous. It looked like they were going to get the momentum to get the winner. So I think you're probably right, 2-2 is a good fair scoreline.
Still 34 games to play, but Tottenham now 5 from 12 points on offer in the first 4 matches. Arsenal 7 from 4. So taking that into account, which manager is the happiest coming away from here today? You know, Poch has still got a draw against his big North London rivals away from home.
Yeah, and you think about the fact that they got a draw against Manchester City. I know they were hammered on the day, but still took a point away from the Etihad, which is no mean feat. I think the big disappointment was that defeat at home to Newcastle. Had they won that, which you would expect them to with 80% possession, then they would have been looking pretty. But the dark mood around Tottenham now centres around the fact that they get to the Champions League final. Then they want to recruit and find them high-profile players, the top players, or the elite players who can take you to the next level. They were courted about Dybala, Coutinho, and those players didn't come. And I think that's the frustration more than anything for Pochettino, is that, he can develop these young players as he has done at Tottenham for 5 years, at Southampton before that, but he wants players now that can actually win titles. And I think this Tottenham team is short again.
You feel, and we said it in the post-match speaking to the lads on the radio, that this is a Tottenham team perhaps in decline?
Well, no, I just think it's a Tottenham team starting again. I think in terms of talking about an end of an era, I believe that Tottenham team that finished the last season at White Hart Lane, the old White Hart Lane, was so dominant that was the time to title challenge. But invariably then, what happens is that the other teams start looking at their players and thinking, we want them. Kyle Walker leaves, Dembele leaves, key players. And now you're talking about Eriksen, Alderweireld, Vertonghen, Rose. If they all suddenly leave now, it's up to Pochettino to develop the next batch. Now, and there's no doubt in my mind he can do that. He's a top-class manager, but there's going to come a period where he says, I've reached the ceiling here. And he's not the type of manager going to stay along. If he thinks that the watermark's been reached, he'll start looking elsewhere.
His opposite number, Unai Emery, he'll be, I suppose, happy with some things he saw today, unhappy with others. One thing maybe disappointing him is the final product of Nicolas Pepe, which we mentioned or we alluded to a few times in commentary today. How does he sort that out? How does he fix it?
Just work. Just working on the training ground, trying to get that composure into his game. He's got immense ability, notably that pace, that dribbling ability, and it certainly scares the opposition. If you think of him in a front three now with Lacazette, we talked about Lacazette is not a 6'3", 6'4" centre forward, but he's got that physical presence, take that ball into tight areas, can roll centre half, so that occupies 2 at times because you're reluctant to allow your centre half defensive partner to get rolled by him and not be covering him. So if you are covering him, suddenly there's space out wide. Aubameyang exploits it brilliantly. Pepe has to get that in his game, but if he just looks at how clinical and how ruthless Aubameyang is, watch him in training, and I'm expecting him to improve greatly.
The diamond was the formation he went with last week in Liverpool. Harry Carey, someone might say. Today he went with the midfield 3 behind that attacking 3. I would guess, though, it's not the last we've seen of the diamond. I think Emery's one of those managers, he kind of thinks about the opposition and then puts a team out depending on how it goes. So, and then of course you have to think about how do you get Ceballos into the team, because he made such a difference here today. So which do you think is their best formation?
Well, listen, I don't think there's one formation that's their best, and I think with Emery, who's known to keep changing it all the time, and he's a thinker. He's not like Wenger, who literally says to his team, we play one way, let the opposition adjust. He's very thorough. He works out where he thinks the opposition are weakness. Now, I agree in terms of the tactics to try and beat Liverpool. In a diamond, you're looking to get control of that midfield area, get your players on the ball, and then create space, even playing out from the back in a way that they did up at Anfield to suck Liverpool on, and then use the pace of Pepe and Aubameyang. But if you ain't got players who can play out from the back, which they proved they haven't, because they gave the ball away 13 times in the defensive third against Liverpool, who is so clinical, and if you don't have midfielders who can keep the ball as well as a Barcelona do in a diamond, then you're going to give it back to the opposition, and then that diamond can't get out to stop Robertson, to stop Trent Alexander-Arnold getting forward from those forward positions. So it's all in good identifying that's the tactics to beat Liverpool. Yes, I have no doubt they are. but you don't have the players to execute it. So that's what he has to work out. And that's the frustration. I think so many of these Arsenal fans now are looking and thinking, we love this manager, he's doing great, but is he repeating the same old mistakes? And that performance at Liverpool, bearing in mind how much Arsenal have been put to the sword up at Anfield over the years, suggests that he is making the same mistakes.
Now, one of my favourite things to ask former centre-backs like yourself or Kenny Cunningham, good old school centre-backs, my favourite topic to ask you about is David Luiz.
Listen, I've said this and it's been well documented. I think he's a fabulous footballer, I really do. In terms of his physique, he's aggressive, his physical presence back there, there's no doubt, can step into midfield, make passes, rarely gets beaten for pace. But having said all that, I still don't think he thinks like a centre-back. And I think even when you come to Arsenal, you're judged by the highest standards. You're on about Tony Adams, Martin Keown, Sol Campbell, Gallas, these type of guys. He's nowhere near that level. And the difference is that Emery said, I brought Luiz in because he's a serial winner. Yes, he is. Look at his CV in terms of what he won at Chelsea. But you have to work out why he won so many things at Chelsea. Is because they protected him. Notably, Antonio Conte played him in the middle of a back three. So when he does go on his little mazes like he does, he's still got two centre-halves behind him. This is a porous defence at the best of times. He's not the one who's going to plug it.
And he doesn't really have other centre-backs, like Socrates is obviously there as well. And he has played a back three last year, Unai Emery.
Yeah.
But he doesn't really have enough players there to do it, does he? To play a back three this year.
I mean, he played a back three, I think, 26 occasions last season. So he does flip between both of them. What they do have Arsenal is they have Holding coming back from injury, a bad injury. But he's still a player who is a reliable centre-half. Now, I know at times he's been hung out to dry, notably against Liverpool in that first game of the season a few seasons back, but he's getting better. He's put Chambers back there, which is a surprise to me, bearing in mind that he's been playing centre midfield in a relegated Fulham team. So he doesn't look like he's the answer. And of course you lose Koscielny, who's such a key player here when he was at the peak of his game. So they do have issues, but I ultimately think that Arsenal's best form of defence is attack. And I think we saw that today, playing on the front foot, making it difficult for Tottenham. I don't think Arsenal are good enough to sit in and defend in a good defensive structure.
Do you think Arsenal will finish in the top four this season?
Yeah, I think they've got potential to do that, bearing in mind that they were so poor away from home last year, which is something that's followed Emery from Valencia and from Seville. He wasn't particularly good away from home in terms of his records, and not defensively either. So I think he's better off just playing on the front for Arsenal, and he has the players to do that.
Before we go, Gary, there's a big match for Mick McCarthy, and thanks very much there, Squire. There's a big match for Mick McCarthy, the Republic of Ireland manager, to deal with on Thursday. Ireland playing Switzerland, one of our big group rivals for the Euro 2020 qualifiers. Now, just on a couple of news lines. First, Kieran Westwood's had to pull out, James McCarthy's had to pull out, Matt Doherty's had to pull out. You know, I suppose there is goalkeepers there that can stand in for Kieran, albeit him not being the first choice goalkeeper. That'll be Darren Randolph. But the big ones, I suppose, are Matt Doherty and James McCarthy. McCarthy next, but Matt Doherty first. Although he wouldn't be first choice, we know Seamus Coleman will be. Is he a big loss for a match like this?
Well, I think all three of those players are. You're quite right to identify their qualities, but Mick's been consistent about this. If you're not physically right, and if you've not played enough games, you just won't be selected. It's as simple as that. He won't take any chances. It's too big a game. And he'll believe, and he'll give the message to those guys who are fit, who are raring to go, have been playing league football, that this is your chance, take it. And that'll be the message. And I think a lot of those players were looking forward to this game. It's a massive game, of course it is. We've started so well, but we're under no illusions. This is a tough game, and these are the games that decide whether or not you qualify. You have to remember how consistent, how dogged this Swiss team are. It's a tough challenge.
The loss of James McCarthy, but you know, I suppose James McCarthy, the injury profile he's had for the last couple of years, you really can't blame him in wanting to get some games under his belt. And I know even one of our colleagues, David Snade, went to see Crystal Palace play against Sheffield United, and he said when he came onto the pitch, although he was trying really hard, you could see he was feeling it a little bit like, you know, he didn't look entirely fit.
Well, there's a huge difference between being fit and being match fit, and this is the problem that James will have, that he'll have done all the hard yards in terms of recovering from his injury, so he'll have done his pre-seasons, which is great. But that's that fitness, and you're right, it comes with games, and Mick will know that. He's so experienced as a manager, he'll know he hasn't played enough games, and it's too big a chance. But we have to protect James. We've built him for so long as a top player, and he's been so unfortunate with injuries. And his time will come, there's no doubt about it, but I just think, as Mick probably does, that this game has come too soon.
We can take some huge positives though from Sheffield United and the way they performed at the weekend. I know you were commentating on that game. Callum Robinson, Enda Stevens down the left side, they look really, really good.
Look so comfortable at that level, which is the big thing, because initially when you come up with a promoted team, you're not playing at that level before. At times you can be guilty of putting these Premier League players on a pedestal. You've watched them on telly and you think they're going to be so much better than you. But I think that Sheffield United have a way of playing and have a manager who makes these players believe that they are good enough. And certainly Callum Robinson getting his first Premier League goal at a time when he missed a good opportunity, which would have been preying on his mind, gets a great goal, then a brilliant creates the chance then for the equaliser. And you think about Ender Stevens at left back, he looks so good. He was driving forward. Chelsea were really struggling to contain him. So they will be turning up full of beans. The only thing about Ender Stevens, he actually might be delighted that the dubs hung in there. I know that John Egan will be devastated that Kerry didn't make it count.
One of your Kerry cousins. Well, I think John might be looking for a spot there beside Shane Duffy. Actually, would you think him and Shane Duffy might be the centre back pairing, or who are you going to put in there?
Well, I think, listen, in terms of John Egan and what he's done throughout his career, I've been so impressed with him. Seen him as a player, young player at Sunderland, got a dreadful injury. Then I saw him have to drop down the leagues, went to Gillingham, got in the League One Team of the Year, and he really, really impressed me. And he's a centre half now at 26, but's played so much football, then goes to Brentford and gets his move to Sheffield United. He's a key player. Mick will like him, there's no doubt about that, but Mick will know, and this will be the message to all those players who have got the shirts. You've got it, it's up to you to keep it, and I've no doubt that Richard Keogh he won't let that shirt go very easily, no doubt.
Absolutely. And just finally, Shaqiri out for the Swiss. Is he a big loss for them?
Well, he is in terms of if he's firing in all cylinders, but I don't think that they're that bothered that he's not doing it. I think that they're probably thinking they've got quality elsewhere. There's other players who have not played enough league football in terms of what Mick's done for the Swiss team, that the manager said, no, you're not ready. Likewise, they're welcoming back 2 or 3 players that they didn't have in that Nation League. I know they've only played a couple of games now, they've got it all to do, but they're a very well disciplined, organised team, and it'll be a tough challenge.
Let's try and get some All-Ireland final tickets, Gary.
Oh yeah, can't wait.